Well, hi everyone. Welcome to the second session of High Talks. I hope everyone is doing great at home and excited to kickstart this amazing talk we have today. As always, I'm joined by my loyal partner in crime, Natalie Nascimento, is here with us, and
Hello, everyone.
and we also have Manuel Pimenta, our special guest. He is a product visionary at critical networks. And he's here with us to talk about how gamification boosts employee productivity. Before we start, and before Natalie leads this amazing conversation that we are about to have, let me just thank you for being here. And if you can, drop us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Have plenty more content like this prepared for you. And soon we'll have our third edition of iTalks. And I want you all to be there and stay tuned for more talks like this. And yeah, hi Natalie, hi Manuel, how are you?
Hello.
Hi, hi, hi.
Let me just advise the ones at home that if you have any type of question during this talk, you can drop them on the live chat. We'll be more than happy to have all of your questions answered by the end of this talk. And yeah, without further to add, Natalie, can you lead this on?
Yes, of course, with pleasure.
Let's go, let's go, let's go.
So, first of all, thank you, Manuel, to be with us today.
Thank you.
Let me share it with you all. The first time that I have any contact with Manuel was in my post degree, and Manuel came to our classes exactly to talk about this concept of gamification in products and how we can use that. I never forget about that. And at the time, with my friend Joanna, we did a project at the end of the course, and we based our solution on this concept. So thank you, Manuel, for your lessons. um, and well, to start and to for all of us to learn a little bit, um, and if you can sum up this concept for those at home that don't know about it, because this is not like a simple tool. It's something that could have a really big impact in companies and enterprise products in our productivity. So, how would you describe gamification and how does it work? Like the essence, what is this essence of incorporating game elements into a non-game context?
Yeah. First of all, thanks for the invite. It's a pleasure to be here and talk about this topic that I've been working on since 2012, so for a long time now. So basically, when we talk about gamification, we need to take a step back and establish to everyone that games are a staple of today's culture. So we've been playing games since we've been a species. We've been playing video games since the late 70s. And today you see them everywhere, not only while we play, but also in TV shows and series. So it's part of today's culture, and to a point where the gaming industry today is uh, as big as the movie and TV shows industry and music industry all combined. So this shows that games are pretty much
Probably COVID
everywhere.
has helped with that.
Yeah, COVID has helped a lot. Yeah, and it in fact we play millions of hours a week as a species. Games are a wonderful tool for learning. For example, kids learn through play, and that happens because games have mastered this process of getting us into the flow state. You know, that state where
Like motivated to continue, right?
you're
Without
just
any
doing
specific
stuff.
goal.
Yeah, you lose track of time. You lose track of uh, are you hungry or not. So and because games have that power, after a while, people started wondering whether we could learn from games and use the tools that games use and apply it to other contexts. So that's why you said applying game mechanics to non-game contexts, and that's what gamification is. So it's the discipline of looking at games and understanding what makes a game engaging, why it makes certain types of people engaged into an experience, and apply those same mechanics to contexts like the workplace or learning or exercising or whatever context that we want to apply it to. And yeah, I would say that's basically it. Learning
Okay.
from games and applying it to other contexts.
Okay. And well, I remember again in the first time that I have contact with your work,
Mhm.
you said something that, well, I never realized before, and I thought this is a really important fact to the success or not of this concept to use gamification, that we have that now well, it was years ago, but probably now as well, as you were saying, the majority group of work work people in companies are people that grow up with games.
Yeah.
So this all these mechanisms and ways of thinking that are used in games, they are all already familiarized with them.
Yeah.
So, how is this gamification thing gaining traction into the workplace? Besides that thing that you said that
Yeah,
you think about that?
yeah, it's as you say. So for the past decade, I would say that the workplace has been taken over by uh, the Generation Y, I would say, and nowadays those are the people that have grown up playing games and grown up playing video games, to be more specific, because video games do have are a bit are even more powerful in the way that they engage us as humans. And so because we grew up that way, we have expectations of what it is to have an engaging experience, what it is to grow as a player in that case, and because we grew up that way, we bring those expectations to work. And then there is a kind of this cognitive dissonance, because we could, for example, only have feedback on our work once a year, and in a game that would be impossible because that game would never have anyone playing it. And so, because we grew up like that, always getting feedback on what we did, always feeling like we were special, either being part of a story or playing co-op. So games have mastered that process of keeping us always growing, while we are playing, and the workplace hasn't, and education hasn't. And so uh, it started gaining traction mostly because Gallup started producing these polls. Uh, I would say in the 90s, maybe, uh,
Mhm.
and the number after a while they started. One of the numbers that they shown was the level of engagement in the workplace, and
Okay.
in the early 2000s, you would see that uh, I forget, but I think it's 85% of people in the workplace were either disengaged or actively disengaged from what they were doing. So imagine that the vast majority of your workforce was only half there, and this really shocked everyone, and really turned on the alarms. And so that's why, particularly the bigger companies in the United States, started looking into gamification as a strategy to bring that engagement back into the workplace. And how can we make the workplace more engaging for this new generation? And that's why it gained traction. Then it started showing results, and it gained even more traction.
And for example, well, we can look for talking to companies. We can help them with gamification to achieve their business goals.
Mhm.
We can help them, for example, to attract or retain talent. That this could be a good factor for companies right now at the moment, mainly in Portugal. How would you say, I don't know if you have an example when
Mhm.
we can use this to help, for example, in these two goals, like business achieve their business goals and retain talent. in
Yeah,
companies?
I would preface this maybe by saying first that we use a lot. There's a metaphor that we use a lot in the gamification domain. That is, um, uh, when you dip broccoli in chocolate, it doesn't make the broccoli more tasty. It just it's in a chocolate. And so, if the base experience isn't good, adding game mechanics isn't suddenly going to turn it into a magically wonderful experience. So, uh, uh, and if you go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you aren't meeting the base needs, it doesn't matter what you do on top of that. People aren't going to look at it. But
Mhm.
keeping that in mind, there are a lot of things that you could do, and there are some basic examples that most people might know about. You have Duolingo that have basically gamified learning a language. You have the levels. You have an avatar. You earn points. You have side quests.
And
So
it's
you have
really
all of this.
engaging, right? We can
Yeah,
stop. Yeah, we always want to achieve more and continue to.
it's a bit of a hassle because they're always nudging you. Where are you? You've been
Yes.
gone so long. Yeah, but it uses a lot of game mechanics. And you have Waze, for example, that uses some game mechanics as well, the GPS platform. But when you look at companies and B2B gamification, which was what I was doing for the past 6, 7 years, um, was we were looking at challenges like how do you increase productivity? How do you better recognize and reward employees in a company? Uh, Particularly if the day-to-day work isn't as engaging or is really repetitive. In those cases, it's useful to introduce gamification as a way to uh, kind of make it more fun because the task itself isn't as fun as in other contexts. We did that with big retail companies by transforming the way employees looked at how they were progressing towards their commercial goals.
Mm-hmm.
We did it with contact centers. In a contact center with about 1,500 people, we introduced a superhero narrative. So contact center operators as superheroes that are challenged every day to meet their milestones in the KPIs. So we turned that into introducing a narrative. We turned that into a totally different experience. We turned traditional training programs into kind of football-like competitions where
Yeah, I was going to ask about the training approach. That could be
yeah,
something.
with training, it's interesting because there's always two sides to it. It's on the one hand, uh, can you address the content itself and make the content engaging, or can you transform the overall process of going through multiple contents into something that is engaging? And we have addressed both. There, with content, it's easier because it's about uh, taking the content that you want to get across and turn it into mini games and into a rich narrative, and you can tell a story and stuff like that. And gamifying the overall process, it's a bit more challenging because when you want to do it right, you want to understand who are the users. You want to make it different for different company cultures, and sometimes companies aren't as receptive to invest a bit more and make it specific to their reality. And that's a really important part of gamification. And my experience is how you can differentiate a well-designed gamified solution from an
Mhm.
off-the-shelf platform. It's how much you can custom and tailor to that specific user base. Because you could have, for example, we had a case. It's a bit uh, 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 you can think about it as a bit prejudiced, but it did happen to us. We on the on the cusp of a project where we applied this really rich football narrative to a sales competition. We had another client and we pitched that same concept. And the client was like, well, that is really fun, looks really engaging, but 98% of our employees are women. They might not react as you think they will to a football narrative. And we never assumed that, but it was really interesting because we had this whole concept. We knew this worked. It was also a commercial challenge, but just shifting the culture of the company and the demographics of the company would shift the entire experience. And so that's always important to consider.
So when using gamification, we go back to the to the best practice when we are thinking about a user experience and all these methodologies that really help us to focus on a specific user to have a really relevant solution for them. Gamification is the same thing, right? We need to look for the ones who are going to use, how is their experience, how is their culture,
Yeah.
and why they are using to help motivate them in some way, right?
It's a user-centric process. So, as with many companies that want to have a product or have a platform that answers the needs of the users, we need to understand who they are. Uh, and the main difference is that when you think about gamification, you need to go a bit beyond the standard personas and have a bit more information on the emotional side. Uh, how do they react to different gaming
Mm,
mechanics, and what are the emotional drivers that they are looking for? Because
okay.
then that will feed into what types of mechanics you are going to use. So gamification is just one of the many possible solutions that you could use. It happens to be one that is really effective when you want to create engagement and you want to target those emotional drivers.
Yeah, I was for the purpose of this high talk, I went to search a little bit, and I took here some examples. For example, Salesforce, they use gamified leaderboards to encourage sales team to compete with each other and reach their sales targets. And what they share was they were able with this method to increase their sales productivity by 20%.
Yeah.
So it's something that it's really huge to uh, use this kind of method and go to this process to be relevant and not just do like you said, like dip the broccoli in the chocolate and well, it's
Because it will make a difference on how much it impacts the bottom line. We have the perhaps the longest running project that we had was with Fortin, and it had a real impact on the bottom line, on the revenue that they were able to achieve, and there was an significant increase in the revenue. And when you are focusing on the employee and making their life easier and more fun and more engaging, and you have a direct impact on the revenue, on the bottom line of the company, you make it obvious. What is obvious for everyone is that if you have happy employees, you're bound to get better results. But this way, we had real concrete metrics that we could show.
yeah,
We
to
increased
help
engagement, we
for the
increased results. Yeah,
future
we
vision.
increased we increased employee satisfaction, and we increased customer satisfaction by consequence. And so there are a lot of cases out there. We've been lucky to have a lot here in Portugal with big companies, small companies in really different domains. And we every time that we've had the room to go deep into the solution, we've
Mhm.
achieved really powerful results.
Okay. And well, talking about this, the impact on the workers and different types of workers, uh, how do you think gamification could impact the different types of work? Like we have more operational works, like if you are working in a in a favorable environment or in a more knowledge workers or in like sales or marketing, how can we approach these different types, or if we have other types that we could look for or take in consideration when working with this gamification methodology?
Yeah, it's. I would say that it is a matter of what are you trying to achieve, because even across
Establish metrics, right?
yeah, the first step is always about establishing the metrics. But you would be surprised at the number of clients that approached me asking for gamification and didn't have an explanation as to why they wanted to use gamification. They heard about it. They thought it was trending. They thought it would be a nice gimmick. It would keep the employees happy, but they didn't really have a bottom line that they wanted to achieve. And when designing a gamified solution, it's really important to keep in mind, what are you trying to do? Are you going to make a product more viral? Are you going to do you want to increase employee satisfaction? Do you want to increase productivity? Do you want to increase uh, how much of the learning content they are consuming, or how much they are retaining? So,
Or, for example, reduce errors
yeah,
in a more
yeah,
operational work that lead to a lot of redo work and a lot of investment in correcting.
yeah, and that's more than the industry itself, or the company, is what's going to influence what type of project you're going to have in the end. That Because that is the first question, and you could be boosting KPIs, or you could be boosting how fast they learn the content. You could be gamify, and you could be doing the same thing both in a shop floor, in a contact center, or, for example, as we did in a mechanics store. So you have the mechanics there working on the cars, and they had a gamified environment around their KPIs. And
Mhm.
the same concept you could apply to a shop floor or to a contact center. So it really depends on what you're trying to achieve. For example, we use the narrative of pirates for a recruitment platform. So instead of filling out forms, you were talking to characters that were asking you, if you want to get into my boat, you need to have this experience. Do you have it? And we transformed that experience of going into the company just by introducing a narrative. So uh,
Mhm.
it's really, there isn't a cut and dry, in my opinion. There isn't a cut and dry way uh, uh, as to how gamification applies to different contexts, or how much
Mhm.
a specific industry impacts it. But that being said, and it's important to underline that, when the company is already driven by numbers, and you know that there are metrics that you can base your experience upon, it tends to be easier. If you don't have an established way to measure the baseline point and then how much you've
You
changed,
can compare the impact, right?
yeah, it's much harder. So typically, commercial settings are more receptive to that because they're already collecting the metrics, and so we turn those metrics into game mechanics.
Yeah. Manuel, for the ones that are listening us and want to do the use gamification in the right way to have a good result,
Mhm.
what do you think would be a key principles to consider when design a gamified workplace solution, for example?
Yeah, as we've been talking so far, we always start with understanding what are you trying to achieve. So that needs to be clear. Uh, then you
So
need to
align
understand,
with business goal, right,
yeah,
and the
what are the
main
business goals,
users.
the metrics that you want to look at and that you want to nudge. You need to understand the players in order to know their motivations and how they will react to the different mechanics that you can use. And I would say that you need to understand their current journey, because that is an important aspect of gamification, and how
Okay.
gamification is different from just applying games to a context. Is that
Mhm.
with gamification, you are transforming the current journey. So there is a journey of, for example, working at a store and selling uh, uh, um, technology, for example. There is a journey that is established. You help a customer, you go to the computer, you help them with the insurance and all that. The process exists, and gamification is about looking at the process and knowing and understanding how can we use game mechanics to make that process more engaging. uh,
Okay.
and to that end, you need to understand the journey. So you can't just go there with a tool and expect it to just force it into the journey, uh,
Like if
and
you
I
do that, you are going to receive 5 points for nothing.
and I would say, in my experience, what has worked best, and the key principle to consider, is always design it with the users, always,
Mhm.
because co-creation is important as a generic concept in whatever experience that you want to design that has users in the end. But with game related experiences, you need to do it with the users, in this case with the players, and we even call them players, to get them into the mindset. You need to co-create it because you are going to bring you are bringing something a bit foreign to their context. And so if they are on board from the start, there is no change management because they are the ones that are creating the solutions with you. And this is something that they created when
They
you.
are going to have ownership about
Yes.
what they are doing, and that they will feel a part of something that will be more engaging.
And you get immediate feedback
The
while
process
they're
itself,
designing.
right?
Yeah, while they're designing and they're prototyping, you are already understanding the reactions and the way they are impacted by the different mechanics. Do points motivate them? Does a leaderboard motivate them? Do badges or missions or whatever mechanics that you want to use? If they participate in the process, you get real-time feedback while you are prototyping, and that is gold because developing something like this is expensive. It takes some time, and if you can get that validation from the start, that's perfect.
And when doing this process, what do you consider that could be the main pitfalls of gamification in this case, or in a specific case of from your experience
Mhm.
when doing employee engagement,
Mhm.
and well, what can you do to avoid them during the process?
Yeah, I would say that specifically in employee engagement, the main pitfall is to apply an off-the-shelf solution.
Mm-hmm.
And it works sometimes, and there are a lot of players in the market that use off-the-shelf products. Uh, but that's where I've seen more resistance. And I can't even count the number of clients where we've gone into, and they had previous experience with a tool that didn't really fit into the experience, that was really foreign to them. And although it had a fun gimmick or two, it was just a thing that they put on top of the experience. And so you're not beginning from zero, you're beginning from negative because they had a negative experience with gamification. And so I would say that is the main pitfall because then the people that come afterwards have to deal with that. But of course, the one thing that makes it that creates an environment for a successful gamification project is to be able uh, uh, to grow with the project. So I would say that one of the pitfalls would be you just do it one off and then you kind of set it and forget it, and a
It's
lot of
like a design system. You need to keep
needs to grow.
looking for them, right?
Yeah, and then there is the classic that everybody talks about, particularly in the gamification domain. Uh, uh, we call it the PBL, so the points, the badges, and the leaderboards. So that is
Mm-hmm.
the most common solution by far that you see in gamification. Just put points to give them feedback, give them badges when they achieve a milestone, and put a leaderboard there because everybody likes competition. Well, guess what? Not everybody likes competition. Not everybody relates to badges, and not everybody relates to points. And so,
Yes, that was one of the questions that I was going to add, because one of the experience that we had here in High Interactive, we realized that for some users, when we were trying to understand their mental model and how they need to do that specific task,
uh-huh,
we realized that they look for this gamification approach uh, like it would be an unhealthy competition that would lead to
yeah,
this kind of uncomfortable solution.
yeah.
What is your advice when?
Again, it's about understanding the users because in some cases, and don't get me wrong, points, badges, and leaderboards are great. They work a lot of times.
Mhm.
They're just not enough. You need to do more, then go beyond that. And the
Something that
problem is
is
that,
related to the ones that are using, right?
yeah, something that makes sense for the users, because you have an example from Disney, the theme parks. They had these leaderboards in the kind of the employee areas, this huge leaderboard where everybody was there. It was great for the ones on top. It was horrible for the ones in the bottom. And so, because they didn't have a competitive nature, and the company was trying to push a competitive context there, it really didn't work, and it backfired terribly. And so, it was really harmful for the culture of the company. And so, you really need to understand, because in commercial settings, for example, competition works great, because people that work there are already competitive by nature.
Yeah.
So you have the car salesman, for example, is a good case. If you have car salespeople are really competitive. So put a leaderboard there, they'll go nuts. Okay, and
You
even
need to be
leaderboards,
first.
you have different types of leaderboards that you can fine tune. You can make it relative instead of absolutes. You can really play around with it, and that to me is how you go around the pitfalls. Even if it is something that could be a pitfall, you can adapt it. And I've used leaderboard about almost all of the projects that I've designed, but I've always fine tuned it to that specific context.
Because, for example, gamification, well, we are not just going used to competition, but to increase teamwork between teams, right? We can use to that as well.
Yeah, because if even in games, not all games are competitive. The vast
Yeah,
majority of them are, but a lot of games are just collaborative.
we need to work together to achieve the main goal.
Yeah, a lot of, and the social driver of gaming is huge. You have all of the esports, or the vast majority of esports are team based, so they need to work together, and that applies to gamified projects. If you want to drive collaboration, there are specific mechanics that are going to do that.
Mhm.
Have team-based missions, or you could have like these milestones that, even though you are a star and you're achieving all of the KPIs, if the rest of the team isn't there, you're not going to get the prize. So you need to work together with your team and make sure that they are better as well, and so that everyone gets the prize. And so, yeah, you can definitely target teamwork. And this is going to happen a lot. It's all about understanding the people and picking the right mechanics for them.
And well, we talked about this a little bit before, but uh, can you give us some examples to help our audience on how, with KPIs, how can companies measure their success of their gamification initiatives? What they can use to measure that?
Yeah, it's going to depend on the metrics that you are measuring. Uh,
Mhm.
if it's if they are more numerical metrics, you can just measure at the start, measure at the end, and then compare. It's a pretty standard way. But when you're trying to boost, for example, the company culture, these are more subjective things that you are trying to assess, and then you're going to have to talk with the HR department, for example, and make sure that they do some kind of survey, or you can even include that in the gamified process to have an
Mhm.
initial assessment. Where are you at? For example, if you are developing something for wellness in a company, you do a wellness check at the start, and you then go through the gamified process, and at the end you do the wellness check again and see how much did it change. So it might kind of take the artistic part out of the process, but you do need to measure a lot of things when you are gamifying something, and it's easy to go into the more fuzzy aspects of it and just make it fun. But
Mhm.
then you aren't sure whether you're having an impact, and while in games that could be enough, just to make it fun. Uh,
In the real world, we need to
yeah, yeah. You need
have
to have
these
metrics. Yeah,
metrics to help guide us, right?
yeah, yeah.
And Manuel, our last question before we went to the Q&A.
Mhm.
Uh, what about the future? What do you think would be trends or opportunities for gamification in the workplace, taking in consideration all these new technologies, all these new ways for us to experience apps and, well, the world in general when
Yeah,
working or in an operational kind of work or in a more knowledge kind of work.
I would say that of course AI is the top would be the top driver for innovation in gamification in the future and in the present as well. We could talk about AR and VR, for example. They're already being used in some cases. I think it's the LAPD that already uses VR to train uses AR to train the recruits.
Mhm.
You have some interesting examples in Web3, but I would say that the moment that AI exploded in this generative persona of AI, it really blew the doors off what we could do with gamified platforms. Because one of the main things that differentiates a great gamification platform from a mediocre one is the ability of the platform to adapt to the different players. And so, if you introduce the way we've done that so far is by having human game masters. So people that are always looking at the metrics and always looking at how the different players are reacting to the different mechanics, and then are doing it by hand and tailoring the experience to the players. But if you are able to have an AI game master that looks at how each player reacts to a specific game mechanic, so you gave them points, and his productivity was boosted by 1%. Okay, you
Mhm.
know that if you create a mission somewhere from now, and that specific KPI that he's down 5 points, you can then just really tailor the experience. And it could happen that you would have a company of thousands of employees having completely different experiences because that AI game master is using the same platform to just create different experiences for everyone. And I would say that would be the future, having like this AI game master to gamify all of us in completely different ways.
Or for example, well, I don't know, in a operational work, have something that help you to inform you by your goals, or imagine the errors that you are doing that are not leading you to your goals, and something that help you to say, look, you are doing this and this a lot,
Yeah,
please,
the
something
possibilities
like
are endless. You could have kind of this. You remember the Clippy that you had in Microsoft Word, and that would
yeah.
say, he would pop up and say, "I see you are writing a letter. You should probably use this." This could happen in a gamified platform. I see that you are 5% down in average call time. You know this guy. This guy has an amazing number in that sense. Talk to that guy and see what he's doing. Or you could all because AI would be aware of what the other guy was doing. You could say this other guy is doing this, this, and this, and is having better results than you. Try doing the same. And
Mhm.
so it could really create really wonderful experiences, I would
And
say.
with this increased productivity, decrease error percentage, something like that, and
Satisfaction and increased rewards. Yeah, it could really power up this.
yeah. Okay, João, I don't know if we have questions or
As of now, we don't,
keep
and
on the question.
I advise you to do it now. Now is the time. You can drop your questions to ask Manuel and Natalie. So we are going to take this Q&A session right now. And but before we start, I don't know if we are forgetting a little something here, but I think Manuel is wants to talk about an event that
Yes.
he'll do
Ah,
in
yeah.
the future.
Yeah,
So
I'll be speaking at an online conference. I think it's the second edition or the third edition of this version of the event. It's called Gamicon 48V. So 48 because it goes on for 48 consecutive hours
Okay.
from February 29th to March 2nd. So it's fully gamified. The whole conference is gamified. And there are always sessions going on. So you could watch it live, you could watch the replays afterwards. And so I'll be speaking there as along many others in the gamification domain. I'll be talking about how my passion for fantasy and sci-fi has impacted the work that I've done in gamification. So it's going to be fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't miss
We've
it.
dropped the links to it on our live chat. You can check it if you want. Uh, and yeah, let's go to the questions. We have some questions prepared for
Mhm.
you, Manuel. That we had some meetings during this week, and we talked about doing this event. And we have actually had some people that wanted to join. And I don't know if this person in specific is here right now or not, but if you are, Collins, give us a hi. And yeah, he has two questions for you, and I will start with the first one. How do we measure specific outputs slash productivity linked to gamification?
Mhm. Well, we talked a bit about that. So it's always hard as for example as with marketing initiatives. How can you know if it was specifically because of that ad or that movie campaign that the products had better results? So it always depends on the how well you've developed the platform to ensure that you take the metrics and are able to relate that to the gamified experience. We've had an example where we wanted to associate the results that the employees were having in specific KPIs and connect it with learning content that they were using. So we were trying to evaluate whether the learning process was improving the KPIs. And so it was a matter of having them to have some snack learnings and then had some missions related to the content that they were learning about and see if that boosted the KPIs. So it's a process of making them time sensitive or at least time bound in the same happen during the same time, and then having the avenues in the platform to measure that. So there is no clear cut way. It's a I would say it's a technical solution.
Okay. I think you got it. You got it right. And let's go to the second question here. That I'm having a little trouble understanding it, but I'm sure that you can both help me. Colin says, "How would gamification output by mode of working, uh,
Yeah.
or when working fully remote, hybrid, or even on site?"
This was something that came up during the pandemic, was whether the impact of gamification changed depending on the type of setting that you were working in, whether you were there or you were hybrid or you were remote. And what happened is that the solutions needed to be different. There is a really cool platform. I'll plug them here. It's called Gather. You could go to gather.town,
Okay.
and it's a virtual office that you can customize for your company, and each employee has an avatar, and you just basically go around the office, and there's a lot of really playful things that you could do. But you can also have video conferences. You can also have shared whiteboards. So it's a concrete virtual office that you share, and it's really retro in the sense that it looks like the Pokemon games. You have the top-down perspective, and that was a way that they needed to adapt a collaboration platform to a remote setting. And so I would say that in the same way that you need to change the mechanics that you apply when you are working with different people and different cultures or different personas, you need to take into account the setting that you're applying them to. The tools that work in a live setting in the workplace will not work remotely, and or might not work remotely, and the other way around. So it's really about it's just another variable that you need to take into account. So I would say that really, yeah, it's just another variable that you need to put into the blender, and then see how it impacts. And you could even have the same mechanic, but just with a different flavor because they are remote. For example, leaderboards are something that work really well remotely, and in the live setting have a different impact because then there is a social aspect because everybody's looking at the leaderboard together and they're teasing each other, and so you have different drivers because they are in a live setting. In a remote setting, it works, but it works differently.
Okay.
Thanks, Manuel.
Yeah.
Thanks, Manuel, for answering Colin's questions. So yeah, with those questions said, let me ask you just one more, if I can.
Mhm.
I wanted to ask you, and this is like a bit a smoother question than these two that the Collins put out in the table. This one is like, can gamification be used to address issues of employee burnout and stress?
Yeah, it can be used, and it has been used. It is being used in. I've seen some examples of gamification being used in kind of these wellness apps
Um,
that are brought into the workplace. There are some examples that already exist in Portugal, and Portuguese companies that are using it.
Yeah.
Um, and it's really just a matter of, in that case, I would say that gamification helps by making the recovery process more tangible because you see
mhm.
progress in the recovery itself, or just by introducing like these casual games into the, not so much by gamifying it, but by applying casual games into the equation.
Or the
uh,
concept of a process, right?
yeah, you could see, for example, I think there was one where you would do kind of these random wellness checks, and depending on the score of the wellness check, it would prescribe you some casual games. So, for example,
Okay.
if the wellness check came out that you were too stressed, it would give you some casual games that would chill you down. If you
Okay.
were a bit bored or you were a bit more on the depressive side, they would introduce casual games that were a bit more fun and engaging. And so, kind of like these games as a medicine. And so, it was an interesting approach. I'm not sure about the results that it had, but it was an interesting way to look at it.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you heard, but my dog probably needs a nap to increase his stress. He's starting to get a little bit stressed. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I guess he's calling these talks off, and this sums up the today's talks. Thank you for your participation, Manuel. Thanks for all your insights and inputs on this topic. Thank you, Natalie, for leading this great talk. And yeah, without further to add, uh, thanks for the ones that almost stood by till the end. Give us a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you are seeing this on demand or not in this live stream, you can drop your questions on the comment section. And me, Natalie, or even Manuel, we will answer them as soon as we can. And stay tuned for High Talks 3. We are coming in hot for this. And yeah, see you on the next one. Thanks, Manuel and Natalie. Thanks for the one at the one for to the ones at home. And yeah, bye bye. See you on the next one.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye
Bye.
bye. Thank you, Manuel.
Thank you.
Bye.